Today's the day, boys and girls. We are working on the Mustang. Yeah, so it's been a storage bench now for way too long. Let's change that. Tired of the Camaro making it jealous. I'm also tired of working on the Camaro, so let's work on the Mustang today. Yeah, it's time to start assembling the motor today. Just sitting here, short block, came back from HPS Performance, and we're gonna try and assemble it into a long block. Got a few things we gotta work on, like this oil pan. The mounting flange is about the most warped I've ever seen, which explains why when I pulled the motor out, despite having one of the new rubber one-piece gaskets, they had like a whole tube of silicone around it. So I got to get this garage cleaned up. You can see the Mustang trunk has become a workbench, and cleaning up the workbench now, and then yeah, we'll get some assembling going. All right, so here's the question. Originally, when the rocker stud broke on this motor, the plan was to just replace the stud, have it in car, get it running as fast as possible so I could actually take this car to an event. I've never done anything to shake down the car. I don't know what else might be wrong with it. I mean, so anyways, I didn't know at the time. I was talking to a friend at AFR. They mentioned that they would go through the heads if I shipped them to them. So I sent the heads to AFR. They fully rebuilt the heads at this point with springs that match the cam I have. And then I decided, well, once I saw the cam bearings, because I'd pull the cam to tell AFR which springs to run. Once I saw the old cam bearings, I realized, crap, this motor is pretty worn. So we shipped the short block off to Fred at HPS Machine, and it was in good shape as far as like the bore, but the bearings were definitely worn. So we did a full bearing job, main bearings, rod bearings. He actually resized the rods to make sure they're round again, as well as new piston rings and hone the block. It's probably the last time we can hone it without having to bore it out. So now I'm into this small block Ford, way more money than I ever planned to be. Probably be in this motor over $2,000 by the time it's done being refreshed. So my whole plan to try and do this as cheaply and quick as possible, so that I can at least just get some miles on the Mustang and see, what kind of car I'm dealing with and how does it actually perform on track and how does the motor feel and what would I change. I really wanted to have some baseline experience before I went in and started making changes. So now the question I'm facing is, should I stay with this cam? The cam in it is, pretty high RPM cam according to the spec card from Crane. Intended RPM range is 3,800 to 7,200, but I have 185 AFR heads. I have dual plane intake. This is a cast iron, original Ford block. This is not a high RPM rotating assembly. Maybe it makes more sense to change a cam. I don't know what to do right at this point. I've already rebuilt lifters, or I should say sent my lifters back to get rebuilt by Comp Cams. So if I went to a new cam, I should probably stay roller, but then I got to be careful that some of the new cams, the ramps are so aggressive, they may or may not work with the valve springs I put in. So we'll figure it out. I'll talk to some people next few days and make some decisions, and I really want to get this motor assembled next week, so I don't have a lot of time. So next time I check in with you guys, hopefully we figured all that out and we're actually assembling this motor for real. Since I didn't take this oil pump off, and it's a small block Ford, which I've never worked on, I didn't realize these things take gaskets. So I did not order oil pump gaskets. So today we'll hopefully just finger tight put the oil pan on to catch any assembly lube or anything, and instead start on the top half of the motor. Now, I built short blocks before, but it's been over 20 years since I've even installed a cam or heads or any of that stuff. So, but if 17-year-old me could figure it out, I'm pretty sure I can do this. Oh man, I shouldn't have said that. Anyhow, so we'll get the cam in today, the timing chain on. I've got to clean up the front cover. It's still, totally dirty and full of the significant amount of silicone that the prior owner wanted to use on this. So we got to get that front seal changed out and get that cleaned up, get the cam installed. I gotta admit, I don't know anything about small block Fords, and it's slowing things down. I figured I'd have the full long block assembled this weekend, and today's Sunday, not making a whole lot of progress. I wanted to reuse the timing chain because when I took it off, it was super tight and didn't seem to make a lot of sense to need to change it. But we put the cam in and went to get everything lined up. And you can see here that the hole in the timing gear is significantly larger than the dowel and the camshaft. So my attempt to save like $50 probably backfired because this is what came off the car. So either at the machine shop there was a bushing lost, or the guys that built the motor before did something janky here and ran this like this anyways. And so anyhow, we're going to have to order a timing chain. We're going to have to order the oil pump gaskets to get this together. I'm debating whether to take the new timing set and then get it degreed. Most of the people I've talked to degree their cams almost never have to actually change anything. They almost always end up running them straight up. So in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and try and clean up the front cover, install the new seal, and finish straightening the rails on the oil pan. And maybe next weekend we'll get the motor built. Alright, so yeah, I don't know anything about small block Fords. It's shown in my lack of progress here, but slowly figuring it out. And you guys can comment about my attempts to get this thing back together and not doing so well. So anyhow, alright, I'm out. Alright, so I hate it when I say so. Alright, we've ordered 2 timing chain sets now from Summit. I decided to order a Comp Cams 2135 because when I looked up the part number, that's what it showed for the early 351s. This is kind of their budget offering because it's a cast pulley. One of the things I stood out right away when I ordered this was comparing it to, if I can get an angle on this decently, comparing it to the old one that came off. This is a much thinner chain, so I didn't love it, and turns out it's made for a 2-piece eccentric. I have a 1-piece, so we decided for round 2, which is really round 3, it would get a Cloy set. So much nicer pulley, billet cut pulley, or steel cut pulley instead of the cast. And this one also has much more finite adjustment for degreeing. So the old one only had plus or minus 4 degrees. This has increments of 2 degrees, quite a bit more adjustment, and it's made for single piece eccentric. It's a much nicer piece. It's also the same thickness for chain as the old parts that were taken off. So let's get this on the motor and let's get assembling. This did not want to go on. Eyeballing it when I'm holding this thing as tight as I could. The bore was not lined up, so I used a trick where you take the cam bolt and you go ahead and install it in, and you use the bolt to kind of force the chain up and the upper pulley up and on. So that's what I had to do to get this thing on. So when your friends are asking you, do you got a pair? This is what they mean. These are the heads that came on the Mustang originally, completely rebuilt now. New valves, new springs, retainers, basically all new hardware. New valve job, deck the head a little bit just to clean it up. So God, these things look so nice compared to when I pulled them off. I can't wait to get these things on the engine, get the car started, or I mean get the engine in the car and then get it started. Oh yeah. All right.
New springs?
Yep, all new hardware. Just to make sure this doesn't go anywhere.
But that was the cat. They said it was feral when they it's about that size, a little heavier. Yeah. But it's okay, pardon me for a second. This is for.
All right, morning guys. Back in the garage. We got most of the day to work on the Mustang's 408 cubic inch motor. Unfortunately, I wasn't out in the garage yet when I heard a loud crash. Came out in the garage, and that box, hard case plastic box, fell off the shelf right onto the nose of the Camaro. So, not a very happy camper. We have a nice fat dent right there. It's kind of hard to see. You can kind of see it there. And a whole bunch of scratches on the Camaro that kind of in this general area. I can now whine some more about D&E scores because I'm sure that just cost me some points. One step closer to getting the Camaro repainted, I guess. Anyhow, let's take a look at the motor. We made some progress yesterday, finally. We got the new Cloy's timing chain on. We'll have to lube this up before we put the timing cover on. We got the AFR heads on. I ended up putting what was the driver's side head on the passenger. I didn't pay attention yesterday. So this hole was the one that had the broken rocker arm stud. It was on the exhaust side. Broke, and they had to helicoil it. So once they got it out with their fancy sonic or laser breakup process, the hole had still been hogged out slightly by the broken stuff. So we got the new lifters in. These are Conch cams, Enduro lifters. I sent them the Conch cams, had them rebuilt. Pretty cool service, saved like $150 versus buying a brand new set. We're going to reuse the existing cam that came in the motor. At 50, it's 248, 254 duration, and lift is 579 and 598. What we're going to do now is we're going to finish putting the valve train together. I need to bolt in the new 7/16 studs with guide plates. So this motor had 3/8 studs before, but I've upgraded to 7/16 studs. That meant buying new rocker arms, as well as I got the AFR stud girdles. So we should have a lot more stability in the valve train. So yeah, we'll get the studs on here, the guide plates, the push rods in, get the rocker arms on, and probably lash it, do the lash and everything. We need to put the intake on and the timing cover on, and then we'll flip the motor over. The oil pan right now just has a couple bolts in it, just holding it in place. As you can see, there's no gasket. So we'll flip the motor over and do the oil pump and oil pan last. And then this motor is pretty much ready to go in the car. What is this? Oh yeah. I can't wait for that part. Yeah. thermostat housing on this thing was leaking a little bit, or at least appeared to be, so I just pulled it off, and you can see there's no thermostat here. So it was interesting. I already noticed when I bought this car, or when I got it, because I bought it sight unseen, that the fan switch had been bypassed, and as soon as you power the car on, the cooling fan's running all the time. So you buy old stuff, especially used race cars, you never know what you're going to get. Well, I'm getting something that probably has a cooling problem. So we'll put a thermostat in it and, you know, get this thing out on the track and see what happens. And if I do have a cooling problem, well, new radiator and maybe new hood vents. I would probably go with something like what's in the Camaro here. Track Spec makes some really nice, functional, good looking hood vents. So we'll just have to see, you know, what looks good on the Mustang. Alright guys, here she is in all her glory. The 408 Windsor 351 stroker motor for the Autocross and Track Mustang is finally together. Thus completes the world's slowest long block assembly ever, at least feels like it to me. But yeah, she's ready to go in the car and is complete from intake to pan. There's a few little things left. Still will have to put in the final freeze plug here, bolt on the flywheel and the clutch. Clutch is supposed to come tomorrow. You know, the distributor is just in there for now, but we'll pull that out and do an oil primer once it's in the car. So finally, after almost a year, hopefully get to drive this thing in anger. I'm freaking pumped.